For centuries, humanity has basically looked to the future with this deep, underlying sense of dread. We're constantly scanning the horizon for apocalyptic signs, digging for hidden codes in ancient texts, and bracing ourselves for some impending, fiery end of the world. It's literally ingrained in our cultural psyche. But welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating historical framework that's designed to flip that cultural dread completely on its head. So let's dive right in because we're looking at a radically different lens for understanding some of the most famous prophecies ever recorded.
Okay, get ready for the ultimate plot twist. What if the profound, earth-shattering events humanity has been waiting on for 2 millennia aren't actually waiting for us in the future at all? I really want you to challenge that centuries-old assumption that we have to constantly be on the lookout for futuristic doom. Because this framework suggests that the apocalypse everyone is waiting for, well, it already took place in the past.
To figure out how this actually works, we need to look at the term itself. This perspective is called preterism. The name comes from the Latin root praeter, which simply means past. Basically, preterism is an analytical framework, specifically an eschatological one, meaning it deals with the end times, that understands biblical prophecies as a historical reality that was completely and perfectly fulfilled way back in the 1st century. And we're not just talking about minor, obscure texts here. This framework applies to major, heavily debated writings like the Book of Revelation and Jesus' famous Olivet Discourse. So, instead of treating these ancient texts as a roadmap for our 21st century future, preterism views them as ancient documents that strictly describe ancient events.
There is a really stark contrast between these two paradigms. The popular view, the one we always see in blockbuster movies and best-selling books, interprets the end times in the New Testament as the literal, physical destruction of planet Earth. But look at the preterist view. For preterists, the end times absolutely did not mean the end of the physical globe. Instead, it referred to the end of an era, specifically the end of the Old Covenant age. This meant the absolute closing of the Jewish sacrificial system, a period that culminated dramatically in AD 70 with the destruction of Jerusalem and the burning of the temple by the Romans. To them, it was literally the end of the world as they knew it.
Clue number 1. The imminence texts.
So the very first and probably most foundational argument centers on the literal words of the text themselves. Take this direct quote from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Preterists argue for a very literal interpretation of this specific timestamp. They say, hey, if we take the text seriously, we have to believe Jesus meant exactly what he said, that these monumental events had to happen within the actual lifespan of the first-hand listener standing right there in front of him.
And that specific kind of language repeats elsewhere too. Take this extremely explicit timestamp from the Olivet Discourse. Right after describing a period of massive, terrifying tribulation and cosmic upheaval, Jesus explicitly states, "Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened." Again, the whole preterist framework hinges on the idea that this generation meant exactly that, the generation alive right then in the 1st century, not some distant generation thousands of years in the future.